Okay, so once we have installed our Android Studio application, we can now start the IDE itself. And to do this, we could just go to the start button and just select Android Studio. Ayan. And let's just wait for it to load. And for this particular tutorial, I am using Android Studio Giraffe. So once it is launched, you would see this screen. And of course, much like with other IDE, we'll have to select on the new project. Okay. And, you know, based on our discussion that an Android, okay, is not only for phones. So you would see here that you could select a proper template for a particular device that you are targeting. So, for example, you could also target a wearable device, a TV, or an application maybe for automotive. Okay, so let's now select phone and tablet because that's the main medium that we will be using. And for this, we will be selecting the empty views activity project. Okay, and by selecting this template, we will be able to select a an appropriate programming language for us to begin with. And you understand, di ba, na we can also develop what do you call this, an application in Kotlin. It's just that we do not want to study the programming language first, and what we wanted is to go right away into programming the different components of the Android SDK, and yun ang target natin. Okay? And so for this, we have empty views activity. We'll just have to click on next. Ayan. And as usual, we have to enter some project name. So my first uh, Java application, I'll name it as my first Java application. And you would see here the package name. And I am assuming that you all know the Java programming language and you know what the package is for. Then you might want to select an appropriate location where you could locate your project files easily. But for now, I'll try to make it as the or set it as the default one. And this is what I am talking about. You could select two different languages, okay? And today, the Android Studio created by JetBrains, I'm sorry, they are really promoting the use of Kotlin. Okay. However, of course, since you know we wanted, as what I've said, to go right away and use the Android SDK. Okay. Uh, we wanted to be more productive and later na lang natin yung i-discuss about the Kotlin programming language, and our target is for us to use the Java programming language that we know. Now, moving to the SDK version, the lower you go, no, with regards to the Android version, okay, that you wanted to work on, the higher the compatibility is to the existing phones that we have. So let's say, for example, if I'll be selecting the default one, notice that uh, it will run on approximately 84.1% of devices. But as I go lower, like for example the jelly beans, because this covers also the older phones, thus it will run in most or in almost all of the Android devices that you have. But the higher your version is, of course, since it only supports the newer phones, like for example, I'll be selecting Android 12. it will just run on some few devices. So it really depends on the target users that you have. Okay, but for me, since my phone is old already, I'm going to select Android 9 as my base operating or version for this particular project. And I will be leaving this as a default one, which is the build configuration language. And you could select the other configuration language, but yeah, we'll just select the recommended one. And we'll just click on finish. Okay. And once you click finish, of course, it would launch our IDE, and you would notice the different parts already. Okay, and most probably the window pane here is our work area, and the status bar at the bottom, you would see the different background activities that the IDE is trying to work on. So I highly suggest that when we start the project, we just try to wait for all of the background processes to finish. And I'm not really particular yet with the background activity if this uses the internet connectivity. No, but it's best that you're always connected over the net because sometimes if there are some components or libraries that are missing, the Android Studio will automatically, download it over the net. Okay? So I highly suggest that you are connected to the internet when you launch your first application. But of course, I believe that once all has been downloaded already, like for example, if the SDK that you have selected at first is not yet existing in your current installation, then the Android Studio will most likely download no yung SDK that is appropriate to your project. Now, notice here in our main work area, this is our main editor. And this consists of different tabs that we could work on. Okay. Now, once almost all the background activities are done, and you could just click show all what is happening. So, yeah. So it's scanning files, scanning Gradle script dependencies, and etc. Okay. So on this left window pane, you would see here the structure of your project. Okay. And with this tutorial, we will only work on this part, which is the Java source code itself under the package name that we have created. Okay. And you would see also the hierarchy of your package in this typical area in your IDE. So notice this signifies the hierarchy of the packages that we have. Okay. So on top of this would also be the menu of the Android Studio itself, which of course at the beginning it's quite overwhelming, but you will be accustomed to these commands once you are working with the what they call this the application already. And besides, you could always visit the documentation of the said Android Studio over the net. Okay, and so we are now ready to begin with our first application. And the first thing that we will be doing, of course, is to establish first where we will be running our application. And with this, you would see here an icon and it's called a device manager. Okay, so for this, I'll be uh, clicking on the device manager, And as you can see, well, I have tested some already, but by default, I believe you would be seeing this Pixel 3a extension level device once it is created. But yeah, so whichever is the default one that is created, and you would want to use it as your emulator, okay? And you could just click on play, okay? And yeah, so I'll just click on play and notice that it would start the virtual device. Okay. And once the virtual device has started, so we'll just wait for a few minutes. Ayan, malapit na siya. And yeah, I basically it would show a normal phone. So I'll be closing this bubble notification here so that you could see it clearly. And yeah, so a phone is currently starting. Okay, and I'm going to pop this out from this window. I'm going to snap it out. So here you go, and you can just click on the window itself. Uh, yeah, and notice that we could now adjust. Okay, we could now adjust the size of the phone that we have, but it is still actually booting up. Now, looking at the controls, of course, you would see here you have the power, volume, and the controls that we normally use at the bottom of our phone, which is home. We have here yung overview, okay, the home and the back. And you could also get a screenshot and take a recording of the video or activity that is in your screen. Okay? And once the phone is booted up, okay, you could use it much like a phone because this is an emulator. Like I can open a browser. So I'll just hover my mouse cursor over the browser icon and activate. Okay, we just have to wait. Yeah. I guess this is because of the different operations. I mean, hard drive operations. I could see my hard drive, uh, what do you call this, performing some read operations. And what happened? I'll just be clicking that again so that I could launch the browser. Anyway, yeah, this is an emulator, so I don't know what happened here, but I guess much like with emulators, since this is emulated, so there's some, slow areas that we could look into, like our hard drives. And yeah, so we were able to launch the Chrome web browser. Okay, but yeah, I think with some problems. But anyway, I guess it's really more of the installation that I did. But yeah, moving forward with our device. So if it didn't work out, okay, you can actually select other devices. Okay, you could create your own. Okay, so you could create your own profile. Like you could select a lower end phone such as Pixel 2. Okay, and click on next. Okay, and install an appropriate operating system for that. And you have to be connected over the net. Okay, so in this example, what is currently installed is API 34, and I highly suggest if you are working with what do you call this? Uh, 64-bit platform and an Intel type of microprocessor, it's best that you select x86 64. Okay, so I guess you could since you could create your own devices or emulator. I think I have pre-created a lower one. So instead of using API 34, I'll be using API 28. Okay, and the old phone that I created is actually launching. Okay, so we have this old phone which is API 28. I think it's Android Pie. And yeah, from here you could much like the functionalities that I have shown earlier, you could click on the gallery and use it much like an ordinary phone. But there's no image and videos that are available. Okay? And so we have activated that already. And once your emulator is running, okay, you could still do a lot of things. Well, aside from what I have mentioned earlier from this menu, you could somehow see the extended controls. Okay, so let's now try to see the extended controls. I think it's launched already. Yes, here it is. You could simulate, like for example, your location has been enabled and you wanted your application to respond based on a location. Okay, or you could also adjust uh, the signal strength, what will happen or how will your application will respond to it, much like the battery, how will your application will respond to a charge level. And you could also use a camera, like for example, you have simulated a camera that has been shot already and you would want to add an image which simulates that you have taken something over the camera or a phone, send an SMS like this one. Let's now try to send a message. Okay. And yeah, so you would see here that uh, we received a message and you could simulate how your application will behave if it detects a message that has been sent. Okay. You could also simulate a directional pad, a microphone, and a fingerprint. And it also has an existing virtual sensors because, you know, our phones have built-in sensors inside. So, yeah, you could simulate how your application will react. Okay, at any rate that you have changed the position of the phone itself and some of the accelerators as what you can see, okay, are changing its values. It's because sometimes your application is dependent on the sensor values, okay, that uh, that you wanted to monitor. Okay, and that's about it for the emulator. And I'm sorry, earlier I was not able to successfully launch a newer type of emulator, which is this one, API 34, maybe because of the capabilities of my hardware here. Okay, but anyway, you could create, as what I've said, a device that would fit for your project and apply an appropriate version of Android to it. Just make sure that you are connected over the net. Okay? And so, my device is running already. And what I'll be doing now is I'll be running this simple, uh, simple Java application that was generated over a template. Okay, so let me run this program. Okay, and you would see here that the Gradle build is running, and I will be running it under Pixel 3 API 28. But of course, you could select uh, to which device you would like to run your program. You could also run it on your own device itself. Okay, you'll just have to pair the device using a Wi-Fi. Okay, so let's just bring this back over the window here and let the application uh, build itself. Okay, and Gradle build is still running. So let's just wait for it. I guess it will be faster if you will be using your own device. And the Gradle build is still running. Okay, it's almost done. And based on the status is that it's launching on the device, and there you go. Okay, our first application has been launched already, and you can snap it out and see the application in a clearer view. And that's it. Okay, we were able to run our first Android application out from the template. And to stop the program from running, of course, you could just use the home button here, much like a phone, but our application is still running, so you'll have to click on the stop button. Okay, there you go. And yeah, so that is how we run your first program and configuring your first emulator device. Okay,